My name's Julia Clements, and for my professional development project, I am going to be talking about START. And START is Students and Teachers Actively Reading Text. So, this presentation is going to be about different reading strategies that we're going to be using before, during, and after reading in order to better the comprehension skills of our students. So, right now, all of you have a piece of paper next to you, and I want you all to jot down what is your own definition of reading comprehension. It doesn't have to be anything great, just a few things that come to mind. All right, and this will lead us into our pre-discussion. So, in grade level groups, discuss the following items. First, I want you to share your answer. And then I want you to brainstorm ideas on how we can improve reading comprehension within our classrooms. Right now, I'm going to read to you some comprehension definitions that I got from a website of teachers just like you who wrote their definitions down, and I want you to compare and contrast these definitions to your own. So the first definition is comprehension is a process in which information from the text and the knowledge possessed by the reader act together to construct meaning. The second one is comprehension is the transacting with text in order to create meaning from it. Third, comprehension is the thinking done before, during, and after reading. And that really resonates with me because during my professional development today, I'm going to be talking about the active strategies that we are going to be using with before, during, and after reading. And then finally, comprehension is the intentional thinking during which meaning is constructed through interactions between the text and the reader. So let's just talk about comprehension a bit. So many teachers state that their students know how to read, but they don't understand what they're reading. And I can completely agree with this. I go into schools and I ask students to read to me. Their fluency is perfect. They pronounce every word correctly. And then I'll ask them a few basic comprehension questions and they don't know what I'm talking about. So as educators, we need to understand that the most important part of reading is comprehension. And that comprehension develops through purposeful and motivated reading strategies. In a lot of our schools today, we have instruction that is based on standardized tests. And through research, it has shown that these specific learning strategies in order to ace these standardized tests do not actually translate into real learning. So as I said, the only way that these comprehension can develop within a student is through these purposeful and motivated reading strategies. So comprehension should be taught to students as they are immersed in reading, not separate. So students shouldn't just be asked questions at the end of the reading. They should be taught certain reading strategies so that they can think about the different things about the reading, and then they could make conclusions on the reading in order to better their comprehension. And the main thing between good readers and struggling readers is that good readers are active and use these strategies. So for this first START, it is going to have direct instruction in reading in which teachers model and explain strategies. And then after the teachers model and explain strategies, the students need time to practice and they need extended independent reading time because during this independent reading time, they are able to utilize these strategies while they are reading. So let's talk a little bit about metacognition. Metacognition is the awareness and management of one's own thought. So as educators, we must strive to move the students to the students' metacognitive level of operations. So this means that these strategies should transfer to other settings without support. So the students should know that these strategies that they're using during reading class or English class can be used in a variety of different content areas. Okay, scaffolding. I'm sure many of you know what scaffolding is, but I'm just going to go over it a bit. So, teacher provides scaffolds or support to facilitate students' ability to build on prior knowledge and internalize new information. As the learner's abilities increased, Scaffolding should be decreased because the ultimate goal of this is to help students become independent and self-regulated learners. So once the students move to the next level, the teacher should then back off a bit so that the students are able to independently complete these strategies during reading. Okay, START uses teacher read aloud, and teachers explicitly model and explain comprehension strategies during initial discussion. They then provide guided practice, scaffolding students during the read aloud to use comprehension strategies with teacher support. So right now, I'm just going to just model for you. I know it's easier said than done. So now I just want to model for you just 2 strategies that you can use within a class, that you would use within a classroom. So this is Mrs. H. She is a teacher who is now modeling visualization. And she is now reading, read aloud, the excerpt from The Boy Who Spoke Dog. So first I'm going to read this. Humans are complicated, Moxie. I told you they are a mystery. But here are a few things that I know. Humans are clever. They can see very well, and they can put things together to make new things. They change the world everywhere they go. This is why we dogs call them masters. But it is obvious that their smell sense is very weak, and the way they think and communicate is limited too, to barking mainly. For example, sometimes humans think by barking out loud, but I was told that often humans think by barking in their minds. The inside of a human's mind must be a very noisy place. So right now, Mrs. H is going to turn to the class and say, when I was reading that paragraph, in my mind I saw a person's head with a little dog barking inside. I was visualizing that, keyword visualizing that, when I read the part, humans think by barking in their minds. Now she would ask the classes if anyone else felt this way or if anyone else saw this. Then she would say, good, you were visualizing when reading. Now she's bringing it all back together and saying, visualizing helps us connect with the story and understand better what is happening with the story. So that's just a model for visualization. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about making connections during a read aloud session. So this is another strategy. So Mrs. H continues to read an excerpt from The Boy Who Spoke Dog. He ran as fast as he could. His leg muscles burned and the air in his lungs rasped. Then the wild dogs caught up with them. Jack saw them out of the corners of his eyes. They were running and loping along beside them, and Jack expected hard, sharp teeth in his neck. But they did not attack, and this frightened Jack more. Instead, the wild dogs kept running along on both sides of them, and they were spreading out in a ragged line as they neared the top of the meadow and the flock of sheep. Ah! Jack shouted. He had hoped to be saved by the sheepdogs again, but now he needed to warn them. He hardly had any air left in his lungs. So now, in order to model this, Mrs. H would turn to the class and say, has anyone ever felt like that? Your muscles burning, like you had no air left in your lungs? Then she would ask the class, and I'm sure some students would say yes. Then Mrs. H would turn to them and say, when have you felt that way? For example, a student might say, I felt that way when I was playing tag outside for recess, or I felt that way when I was playing kickball in gym class. So then Mrs. H would ask them, how did that make them feel? A student may say, it made me feel breathless, or I felt like I was dying. Then Mrs. H would ask them, can you talk very well when you feel that way? And they would probably say no, because mostly when you're breathless, you can't really talk that well. So then Mrs. H would bring it all back together like we did in the first model and say, those are very good connections to our own lives. They help us understand how Jack feels. It reminds you of playing kickball or tag and feeling breathless where you can't even talk. So those are just two strategies that I modeled for you that are in the START program. So right now I'm going to go over the next 8 strategies. So the first one is predicting and inferring. 2, which I just modeled, is visualizing. 3, which I also modeled, is making connections. 4 4 is questioning. 5 is determining main idea. 6 is summarizing. 7 is checking predictions. And 8 is making predictions. So modeling. So first the teacher is going to read aloud, and then she's going to model the strategy as I just showed you. And then she's going to show you when to use the strategy. So that the purpose of this is to increase students' metacognitive ability to transfer these strategies to their own independent reading. So let me just go back. So when a teacher is modeling this, her first lesson would be on predicting and inferring. Then her second lesson would be on predicting and inferring and visualization. Then her third lesson would be on predicting and inferring, visualization, and making connections, and so on and so forth, until they reach making judgments. Then all 8 strategies have been modeled, and then students can now learn to use them independently when reading. Okay, so let's talk more about the reading strategies. So before reading, the strategy is predicting and inferring. So an example of this, a student would say, in this chapter, I think. So the student may make a prediction about the book based on the cover of the book or based on the other chapters that they read. During reading strategies, there's 3 of them. Visualizing, which in my mind I see, which I just modeled. Like in my mind I see the barking dog. Making connections, this reminds me of, just as this reminds me of when I played tag or when I played kickball and felt breathless. And questioning, I wonder what's going to happen next within this book, or I wonder what's going to happen next in the chapter. Then after reading. After reading has 4 strategies. The main idea, or as I think the most important thing, was what within that chapter or what within that book. Summarizing in 10 words or less, so summarize what we just read in 10 words in order to have a better grasp on what you just read. Checking predictions, my original prediction, and then you would either compare and contrast if it was right or if it was wrong and what actually happened. And then making judgments. My favorite part was what? What was your favorite part of the book or of the chapter? All right, so the results of this, based on statistical analysis, students in START classrooms made significantly higher reading comprehension gains on the nationally normed standardized Gates-Mackgeinite, don't know how to pronounce that, reading comprehension tests than students in controlled classrooms. Not only did struggling readers jump in scores, but also advanced readers. So we know that this isn't just to help struggling readers, these strategies. This is to help all kinds of readers. And I really think that these strategies pinpoint each and every single individual needs within the classroom. So I think the most important findings, as I was just talking about, was this easily implemented innovation improved reading comprehension for all students. So I think this is a pretty easy thing that we can implement within our classrooms in order to make our students more active while reading. And that struggling readers, average readers, and advanced all readers all improved. And that's perfect because, we don't only want to just pay attention to the struggling readers and forget the advanced readers. We also want those advanced readers to continue to increase their comprehension skills as well. So right now, I want you, after I presented this professional development, I want you to talk about what did I learn. I want you to write it down first. Then I want you to talk about how you can incorporate this inside of your own classroom. And then I will take any questions anyone needs. And if anyone can't think of any questions right now, you can contact me at julia.clements@sju.edu. And these are the references that I use. Thank you so much.